Let's dive into a story that's incredibly heartbreaking and has sparked a ton of discussion. We're talking about Iryna, a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee who came to seek safety, only to be brutally killed in a completely random attack. This isn't just a local news story anymore. It has become a huge conversation about public safety, our justice system, and even how the media covers these kind of events. It's a heavy one, but stick with me because there's lots to unpack here.
Newly released surveillance video shows the moment 23-year-old Iryna Zarutska boarded the CATS train at the East-West station. She sat down in front of a man identified by police as Decarlos Brown. 4 minutes later, he suddenly pulls out a knife and stabs her.
First of all, let's talk about Iryna herself. She was born in Kyiv, Ukraine. And like so many, she and her family had fled their home in 2022 to escape the war with Russia, eventually settling down in North Carolina. She was working at a pizzeria and was studying at Rowan Community College, dreaming of one day to become a veterinarian assistant. Friends and family remember her as a resilient person with a heart of gold, someone who was deeply loved. She was also a really talented artist, known for her unique clothes design and her love for sculpting. Her father is still in the Ukraine due to wartime travel restrictions and could not even attend her funeral. Just imagine going through that. Let that sink in for a minute. Her story could have been about hope, a rebuilding. Instead, it became a headline about loss. So here's what actually happened. On August 22nd, 2025, Iryna was fatally stabbed on the light rail, the Lenox Blue Line to be specific, near the East-West Boulevard station. The attack was completely random and unprovoked. Surveillance footage showed the train shows a man who was later identified as Decarlos Brown Jr. sitting right behind her. After about an hour and a half, he just pulled out a folding knife and stabbed her multiple times in the neck without any interactions at all. She was pronounced right there at the scene. Brown then got off the train at the next station and was arrested on the platform. It was just chilling to think about how quickly and senselessly this happened. Now, let's look at the person accused of the horrific act, Decarlos Brown Jr. He's a 34-year-old homeless man, and he was arrested right there in the scene and charged with first-degree murder. But his story isn't quite simple either. Brown has a really troubling background, a history of mental health issues, including diagnosis of schizophrenia, and a long criminal record going back to 2011. His sister told reporters that he struggled with hallucination and paranoia, and he actually told her he attacked Iryna because she was reading his mind. Just earlier in 2025, his mother even tried to have him committed for mental health treatment, and he was released without bail. Just like that. An arrest for misusing 911. His criminal history includes things like armed robbery, breaking and entering, and it goes on. The case really blew up when the graphic surveillance video of the attack was released to the public on September 5th. This video intensified the outrage around the case and quickly went viral on social media. What started out as a local story became a national sensation, sparking conversations and controversies everywhere. This tragedy quickly became a huge political and social debate. Conservative figures and politicians like President Trump were quick to criticize the policies, especially those allowing Brown to be on the streets despite his history. There was a lot of talk about double standard in the media. Initially, coverage was mostly limited to local news, which is typical for local crime stories. But once this video went viral on social media, people, especially on the right, started claiming the mainstream media is deliberately ignoring the story because it didn't fit a certain narrative. They compared it to cases like George Floyd and Jordan Neely, suggesting media liberals, politicians reacted more vocally to cases involving police violence or violence against black men while appearing less concerned with violence against white women. Journalism professionals offered explanation for the delay, noting that national attention often take off when more details or videos emerge. And unlike some other cases, Iryna's murder wasn't immediately connected to a wider social justice movement. Beyond the media debate, the incident exposed some really serious systematic failures. There have been a lot of criticism of the judicial system, particularly the decision by Magistrate Judge Teresa Stokes to release Brown on a written promise just months before the murder, despite his extensive criminal record and mental health issue. People are asking, why? Why a repeat offender with 5-year prison sentence for armed robbery was freed? The mental health system also came under fire. Brown's own family had concerns about schizophrenia and violent behavior. They even felt that the system had failed him. A judge had even ordered a mental competence evaluation for Brown prior to the murder, but it wasn't complete in a timely manner. He had also been involuntarily committed for psychiatric monitoring, but was still released back into the community. And then there's transit safety. The surveillance footage showed no security personnel on the train car where the attack happened. In response, the mayor announced immediately increasing the security on commuter trains and fare inspectors. The U.S. Transportation Department even launched an investigation into the city's handling of the transit system. Secretary Sean Duffy's warning they could lose their federal funding due to its failure to protect Iryna. And just think about this for a minute, folks. Had this not get the attention that it did, it would have been swept under the rug and nothing of this magnitude would have came out. Listen to what this guy said. He just said they could lose their federal funding over this. It's also important to address some misinformation that popped up around the case. Some on the far right have used this tragedy to falsely claim that the case is skyrocketing in the Democratic-run cities. But the Charlottesville Police Department actually reported a 25% reduction in violent crime. In the first half of 2025 compared to the previous year, there have also been attempts to push racist agenda by focusing on difference in race between Iryna and her attacker, fueling narratives about black on white crime. However, authorities haven't disclosed a racial motive. And Brown's sister clearly stated he attacked Iryna because he thought she was reading his mind, pointing to a mental issue as the likely factor. One other thing that caused a stir was the GoFundMe situation. Iryna family doesn't have legitimate GoFundMe campaign for funeral and other expenses, and it raised tens of thousands of dollars. This one is still active and totally legitimate, but the controversy came from a separate unauthorized GoFundMe page that was created for Decarlos Browns Jr. These pages tried to argue he was also a victim, pointing to his mental health issue and supposedly biased system, with one even claiming to fight racism and bias against our people. Public outrage was immediate, and GoFundMe quickly removed these pages and refunded donations, citing their term of service against campaigns raising money for those charged with a violent crime. So what's the takeaway from all of this? It's clear that Iryna's death is a deeply personal tragedy for her family and friends, who remember her as a talented artist, an animal lover, and a kind spirit. But to the public, her death has become a flashpoint. It highlights complex society issues like refugees, vulnerability, public transit safety, and serious failures in our criminal justice and mental health system. It's also unfortunately been caught up in ongoing debates about political and media bias. It's sad. Sad. Remember, it's sad. Sad. Remember how interconnected these issues are and how much work still needs to be done to prevent such tragedies.